Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Bell, a podcast from Barrow County School System. And today we're discussing family engagement and how we partner with our families to make sure that our students have the best opportunities to learn. I'm your host, Sierra Roberts, and today we have special guest, Ramon Manzo.
Thank you for having me, Sarah. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Pretty good. Will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I am the Family Engagement Specialist for Barrow County Schools. I've been working here in Barrow County since the 2019-2020 school year as an employee. Previously, I worked a year as an independent contractor here with a different program. I will say I simply just really enjoy working in Barrow County Schools. Little plug there. I was born in Illinois. I was raised partly there and then partly in Mexico for a few years. I actually graduated college in Mexico, and right after I graduated, I came over here, and here I am.
Oh, that's awesome. So we'll go ahead and get started. Will you explain what family engagement is and why it's such a crucial part of education?
So you see, that's an interesting question, simply because if you ask 10 people, they can probably give you somewhat similar, somewhat different. It just depends on what your interpretation of what it is. My favorite concepts or definitions would be that family engagement is an ongoing process, and it really is honing in on actively on promoting that active participation of all components, communication and collaboration between the school, the families, and the communities. And in doing so, we really want to make sure that the students succeed. My second favorite definition, is that it's really a shared responsibility between the schools and the families, in which the schools really commit to collaborating with families in a meaningful way, and then families really commit to supporting their child's development and learning. Key points here to take away are success, learning, and development, just because we are not just preparing or wanting students to succeed in school. We want them to succeed in life. And that's what this partnership is about. We want to make sure that we work together to provide the necessary support for all three components and make sure that our students, which are our target, succeed in anything in any path they may choose. Why is it important? Just because it's been proven that if the school, the families, and the students work together, the students will have a higher probability to succeed in any path they may take. And this really takes many different forms. It doesn't just mean the parents are inside the school all the time. It doesn't just mean that they come to rallies, pep talks, stuff like that. A lot of the time you see families who are actively engaging in their child's education without necessarily being at the school. They can do it from home, using their own means. Sure, it can look like, you know what, I know that I'm not a professional in the area, so I can hire a tutor to help that student, because either I want them to increase the ability, or they may be not where we want them or when he or she wants to be, so we can provide that additional help. Or it could be, you know what, I contact the teacher and say, hey, I can't go to the school, but do you have any strategies? Do you have any resources that I could use at home to support that? And then we go on to the teacher's part, where the teacher can provide the supports, can explain how that works, can really help that family be prepared to support, because most of the times our family, if not all the times our family, really want to support students. However, sometimes they don't really know how. So that's where that partnership really plays, where they mutually support. So the teacher does all the heavy lifting at the school, and then the family does all the heavy lifting at home, and they kind of mirror that effort.
Absolutely. That was a great answer. Ramon, how does Barrow County foster a culture of open communication and collaboration between schools and families to create a supportive learning environment?
Okay, well, it may or may not address everything that you just asked, but what we do is called the spring planning meeting, and it goes in conjunction with our comprehensive need assessment survey. So I'll focus just on the spring planning meeting. During this meeting, our intention is, with the restructure that we had, to make it more of a conversation. We want to make sure that we provide a time and place for all our families, teachers, and other school staff to sit down and really talk about what went on this school year and what we think went well what we saw or areas that we saw we could improve, and then kind of come up with draft plans, if you will. See what the parents identify, oh, I think you guys did this really well, because it's always good to recognize the efforts of the school. In the same way, it's always good to recognize the efforts of the families and the students. So letting other schools, hey, we're happy that you guys did this, it was great, is really good input. And at the same time, hey, we would like to see this. Because usually from the school system, we see everything through our own lens. And sometimes it's a little bit difficult to see it from a parent's perspective. Even if we are parents ourselves, it's just we have our school system cap most of the time on, right? So we want to make sure that we provide that space so families can tell us, we would like to see this. We would like this to happen. What can we do to partner? And then schools grab all that input and that feedback, and they use it when they're planning for, they're working on their school improvement plan during the summer. So I'll make a little invite here. If anybody has not participated in a spring planning meeting before, please go ahead and do so. It is very important, and we really much value the input that we get.
It's really good. I guess this kind of ties back in, but how are we accommodating languages that we don't typically work with?
So that is something that we have been doing for a few years, but more so this year, we've done it a little bit more intentionally. First, I'll tell you what we've been doing, and then we can talk a little bit about what the project that I've been working on this year. So historically, we've offered language assistance with different companies. Our main provider would be Language Line, and this language assistance is not just spoken language, but also written. So whenever we can, we translate documents upon request, and we identify kind of the languages in which we have the most need, and we make sure that we already have those documents translated. We provide interpreters for several meetings. We provide them for family engagement meetings. We provide them for, special education meetings. We provide them for parent-teacher conferences, all that kind of, anything you can think of that we believe could impact equal access to education, we provide that service. We have been providing it somewhat informally with interpreters, live interpreters, besides Language Line for years. However, this year, we've really been working and honing on identifying, recruiting, and training our interpreters here in Barrow County Schools. And most of the time, that's people in our community or around our community. So another little plug here, if there's anybody out there that is bilingual in any language and is interested in becoming an interpreter, they can reach out to me, and I'll be more than happy to work with them and see if we can provide more services. We just want to make sure that we meet all the necessities of our families.
Absolutely. How do you ensure that family engagement efforts are inclusive and consider diverse needs and backgrounds of all families in our community?
So we can go back to providing those interpretation services, both Language Line and in person, but we could also even go a little bit beyond that and addressing that our community is diverse. So we have different family dynamics, if you would like, and that basically means that when we are hosting different events, when we are providing different materials, something as simple as not just saying, oh, welcome parents, because we don't know if all that family's dynamic is mom, dad, and children. There's different family dynamics, and they all work. They're all family. So instead of welcoming parents, we try to welcome families, because we want to make sure that everybody's welcome, that everybody feels that Barrow County is the place to be. Besides that simple little change, we make sure that we try to adjust times for events. We don't always just offer them during the evenings or always during the mornings. We kind of try to mix and match to make sure that we provide that. An example is I do head the District Parent Advisory Council, which is a group of parents of students here in Barrow County Schools that we work and we kind of see, we look at things that we can improve. I get input on various things from them. We meet about 4 times a year, and I usually offer those meetings during the morning, during the afternoons, because I understand that some people work in the morning, some people work in the afternoons, or sometimes they're busy, either or. So I try to make sure that I modify that schedule to make sure we can reach as many people as possible, regardless of what time they get into work or what their specific family dynamics are.
That's wonderful. I also heard a fun fact that anytime there's some kind of event, you like to help out and translate for those families?
Yes. So I oversee the interpreters, so I'm usually not doing the interpreting, but I try to go to as many events as possible because sometimes we don't know. We might not have gotten enough interpreters just because we weren't expecting so many families to show up, but I'm always willing to provide that additional assistance. And honestly, I just love being able to talk with our families because I get to learn a lot about their unique situations. And sometimes that is a really good eye-opener, and that really guides my approach to what Barrow County School System's family engagement programs are and how I provide that assistance. Full disclosure, I am a behind-the-scenes kind of guy. I am not in the front, but I try to make sure I provide as much support as I possibly can.
I love the passion that you have for it. So will you tell us about some success stories that you've seen with working with the families?
Yes, so I'm not going to mention names, but there has been a couple families when I usually try to call families throughout the school year just to see how things are going, to see if they've heard of different programs that we have, or if there's anything we can just do in general, right? So a couple of times, or a few times actually, I've encountered where there's families who have specific needs, and those families are unaware that we provide those, or we provide resources, or we provide something to address those needs. So sometimes I have the, I'll call it a privilege because it is, to be able to help those families connect with those services either within Barrow County Schools or outside Barrow County Schools to make sure that those students are served. One example is helping families sometimes communicate with our EK department. Sometimes they aren't aware that this program exists where their children who have specific needs can attend school to help with those needs. And I think that is, without going into specifics, I really do think that's a success every time we're able to provide some sort of service or support to any children or any child, out there.
That's wonderful. Earlier, you also mentioned, when we were off camera, how one of the students that was at Newcomer is now working with you.
Yes, actually, his name is Jesus. He's one of our interpreters. He's a great guy. I actually talked with him yesterday. And he is an interpreter for English Spanish. He was part of our newcomers class a few years back. When I put it out that we needed interpreters, actually his former teacher, Miss Wilson, recommended him. So I reached out. We had a conversation. He had taken, I believe, a course at UGA to be an educational interpreter. So I was like, we have the need here. You are from the community. Would you like to be an interpreter? Obviously, we pay. It's not for free. And he was excited. He was a bit nervous, but he was excited. So we kind of worked together, and it's great being able to see how he went from student to now contributor here in Barrow County Schools. So it was really interesting.
I think that's just wonderful. What response do you get from families in the community about being involved in their child's education?
So at this point, I'm going to say it's a bit of a mixed response. Just because I got hired 2019, 2020, and we all can remember, 2020 was when COVID hit, right? So that was my first year. We were kind of in that transition between my predecessor and myself. And COVID changed the dynamics of a lot of things. So we no longer were able to offer all these amazing opportunities for families to come here. We were trying to make sure that we provide a safe environment for our students to learn, so we limit the contact. And that had a great and lasting impact for years on our approach to family engagement and what families came to expect when it comes to being inside the building. Last year, we started to make the push, and the schools really did this really well, to let families know, hey, it's not COVID anymore. We are open for business. Please come. We want you here. And last year, we started to get a little bit better of a response. I mean, again, it was, I think, from my understanding, it was kind of the first year we were really pushing it out again. And we did get somewhat a response, not as much as we would have wanted to, but again, we understand we are busy, we all have our concerns, so it's totally acceptable. However, this year we made an even bigger push, and we got an even bigger response. This year, little recap, last year principals met, they talked about what worked at each school when it came to family engagement, and they saw the difference in each principal's approach to family engagement. And during those conversations, a lot of schools decided to adopt more is better. So they provided a lot more opportunities for families to come to the school to do something. They just wanted them inside the school. So this year, schools have really focused and honed on in having families just come to school. We want you here. We want you to see what's going on. Not necessarily we want to make, we're providing those resources, that support, but the first step is making sure that they are involved, that they know that we want them here, and it happened. Usually when I go to different events, I get to see pretty much triple-digit families in almost all of our schools, which is huge in comparison when we were struggling to get a handful of families the past few years. So I think the families want to be in our school system. At least I hope. Our schools want our families there, and I think we're getting there faster than we actually think. I'm hoping that moving forward, our families are able to participate more, and our schools adapt as much as possible to make sure we can provide different services throughout the school year and the school day.
Yeah, it was definitely such a transitional period coming from COVID to where we are now. So I'm happy that everybody's starting to get back into the schools, because that is what we want.
Yes.
We want them into the schools. So in what ways do families get the opportunity to be involved?
Well, that's a good question. So we do have, we could go back to that spring planning meeting, which I already explained. It's an ideal opportunity for families to be really an integral part of the child's education, or more so the decision-making process, kind of what's going to go on. But family engagement events, in essence, they are designed to make sure that we are providing strategies for families or to use at home. So if families are able to come, they'll be able to learn something, or they'll be able to brush on something that, or receive something that would be beneficial for them to use at home, and then support their child's learning. Like we said, family engagement is about learning, development, and success. So we want to make sure that we, on the school side, provide that. Some other opportunities in general, I mean, it's just after school, during school events, communication, being in touch with families. Our teachers, thanks to Remind, our teachers have been able to communicate even more so. And the neat part of Remind, a little plug there, is that they are able to communicate in their own language. So without needing an interpreter, teacher can text in English, and as long as its family have indicated that they have a preference other than English as a language in Parent Portal or in Infinite Campus, then that message will automatically translate into Spanish. Again, this is done, it's not done manually, so some of the messages kind of could be a little bit rough, but it gets the gist of what both the teacher and the parent are trying to say, so it kind of helps that communication piece. Some schools are starting to move towards having teachers call a handful of parents. We would like to be able to call everybody as often as possible, but realistically we only have a limited amount of time, so we kind of rotate every now and then. At least that's what some schools are doing at this point. On the district side, we are working on some projects to be on the lookout. I'm not going to disclose anything yet because it's still in the works, but what's that phrase? Somebody help me with that phrase. Stay tuned. There we go. Stay tuned. Yes, stay tuned. We'll make sure that information gets out there as soon as it's available.
Well, you guys heard that. Stay tuned for the information that's coming out soon. So, Ramon, will you tell us about some projects you've accomplished or are currently working on to increase communication and engagement with families?
Yes. So, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we do have an interpreter, quote-unquote, program now going. We identify individuals around our community or in the surrounding communities. We recruit them and then we train them, and it's an ongoing training to make sure that we are providing those, and that's been a big project of mine for this school year. I've been focusing a lot of my time on it to make sure that we keep up with the trends and we are able to recruit as many individuals as possible. Currently we do have, I'm going to say 5, maybe 6 languages. So we have English, Spanish, we have English, Ukrainian, English, Russian, English, Mandarin, believe it or not, ASL, and we are currently working on getting English, French. Those are for the in-person, for for any other language, we do provide language line service. Because we know that we have a plethora of languages here that are spoken here in Barrow County Schools, so we want to make sure that we address that. This other little project that I've been working on is maybe not so much geared towards a family, but it will have an impact on families. Working on the learning management system Canvas. I am working on kind of a hub where all our schools can access their family engagement, anything they need for family engagement. And one of those big pieces or one of those big drives is professional learning when it comes to family engagement. We understand that we're all constrained in time. Time is limited, so we can only do so much with what we have. In an effort to make sure we maximize the amount of time and we don't have to pull teachers out of classes or stuff like that, I'm providing self-paced professional learning. We've been working on that platform this school year, and those modules for professional learning should become available next school year for all our teachers. So the intent is that through those modules, teachers will be able to become more knowledgeable of the impact of family engagement and what they can do to improve their own personal family engagement approach.
It's wonderful. We definitely do want everybody to be aware of this and be able to help out in the best ways possible. Looking ahead, what are some aspirations and goals for the future of family engagement in our school system, and how do you plan on strengthening these connections?
Now that's always a tough question, because I'm more of a let me do what I'm doing right now and we'll get to it later. But if I have to say something I would like to see is that somewhat a change in culture where we really, I'm trying to put it into words, where we're able to bring in that sense of community, that each school is its own community and all the schools together are the community of Barrow County Schools, and that we want our families to be in here. We want our families to want to be a part of the Barrow County school system. We want our teachers to be prideful that they belong to the Barrow County school system community. And we want them, and the way my little nugget of help that I can provide is pretty much helping all those teachers understand the relevance and the importance of family engagement through those modules that I'm currently working on. And that's going to be an ongoing project. We're going to be continuously growing, providing more PL, providing more information and more resources or strategies that teachers can implement throughout the school years to come. But yeah, that is a big project, at least while working it is a big project and it's an ongoing project, so I am very excited to see what comes of it, and I am always open to any sort of suggestion if there's anything that I can do to make sure our families feel more welcomed here. If there's anything I can do to provide more assistance for our school, I am more than happy to provide that support.
If you've enjoyed this conversation, be sure to subscribe to Beyond the Bell wherever you get podcasts, and check out our website and socials for more information. And remember, the learning journey never stops. It continues beyond the bell.